Wait, did the Bank of England just say hands off our money rails while the US is busy gift wrapping the dollar for every phone on Earth? Grab some popcorn because this saga is wilder than a cat in a laser pointer factory. So I'm scrolling through central London last weekend, rain, double-decker buses, and the whole kind of postcard, right? Now, the phone kind of buzzes with an article, right? Governor Andrew Bailey warns against private stablecoin issuance. You can cue record scratch. Now, this is the same Bailey that's now kind of chairing the Financial Stability Board, meaning that the guy has a megaphone the size of Big Ben. And he is basically telling banks, don't you dare print your own internet money. Now, why should we care about this? Well, it's actually because while Bailey's drawing red lines, the Trump administration over in Washington is rolling out the red carpet for dollar-dominated stablecoins, or denominated, I should say, stablecoins. Now, he's hoping to basically beam greenbacks into every pocket that has a signal. Two continents, two playbooks, one gigantic tug of war over who gets the programmed money. And in that tug of war, we regular people are the rope. Okay, let me rewind. Stablecoins started as the crypto's world's kind of duct tape, right? Pegged to dollars, euros, or even yen, so that traders can jump between coins without touching dusty old bank rails. Fast forward a few years and we've got tethered tokens moving hundreds of billions of dollars, right? Often in the kind of dead of night across the borders that you can, or at least every single border, in fact, that you can think of. It's kind of like the Venmo met kind of Star Trek teleporters. Money, dematerializes, I should say, in Paris and rematerializes in, let's say, Milan before your croissants even get cold. But here is the twist, right? Bailey isn't raving about criminal usage or shadowy bad guys. He's worried about, brace yourself, success, right? If millions prefer, private euro stablecoins to actual euros, well, the European Central Bank suddenly has the monetary steering wheel yanked from its hands. Round of applause for everybody getting involved in stablecoins. So think of it as a kind of a wave, taking over your car's steering, because it claims to know a faster route. It's handy until you kind of realize that the wave is also selling popcorn ads on your dashboard. So you might be thinking, what's Bailey's alternative then? Tokenized bank deposits? The same tech buzz, but deposits remain inside the central bank supervised fence. Basically, Legacy Bank wants to keep the power, but picture a kind of money zoo then, right? And you can kind of pet the digital pony, but you can never actually leave its enclosure. It's less fun, maybe, but the zookeeper sleeps better, right? Now, you know what really kind of talks regulators' brains then, right? That's network effects. Dollars on chain explode because people already trust dollars off-chain, right? So it's kind of Starbucks gift cards on steroids. Every new user reinforces the loop, squeezing out rivals like the euro or the pound, right? Now Europe sees America cranking the network effect amplifier to 11 and thinks, hold my espresso, this could drown our currency. Now, I hear you guys asking, right? Saying, Nick, isn't crypto about freedom and borderless innovation? So why side eye these tokens? And sure, those are some great questions. So let me tell you a little story about seatbelts, right? In the 1960s, drivers hated them, right? They kind of said that they kind of cramped the style, right? Governments forced car makers to install them anyway. Fast forward and nobody whines because seatbelts actually do save lives. Regulation isn't always the villain, right? Sometimes it's a silent guardian, like Batman, but without the kind of gravel voice. Now, don't get me wrong, right? I'm a kind of card-carrying crypto nerd. I use stablecoins to pay my video editor in Brazil faster than you can say Swift code. But I also remember 2008 when fancy kind of mortgage products turned out to be a financial fireworks, right? Stablecoins today resemble those mortgage-backed securities to a degree. They're complicated under the hood and, if mismanaged, capable of blowing holes in bank balance sheets. Now, Bailey's fear is actually quite straightforward. If deposits flee into private tokens, well, banks shrink, lending dries up, and suddenly Main Street can't get mortgages. It's kind of dominoes in kind of Armani suits. Now, at the end of the day, I think that what we're going to see is that banks will ultimately become the crypto custodians, but we'll get to that probably in another video. Meanwhile, of course, across the Atlantic, the US Treasury Secretary Scott Bassett sees the same tokens as kind of jet fuel for dollar dominance, right? Let kind of private issuers tokenize treasury bills, he argues, and the whole planet starts kind of financing US debt just by hodling phone money. Now, inflation relief and reserve currency supremacy is one neat app, right? Now, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗍 kind of nods like a dad finally convinced TikTok isn't just pure chaos. I believe it is pure chaos. So we've kind of got a polite British no thanks versus an American yeehaw saddle up. Right? You can cue the kind of ideological kind of popcorn here. And of course, both sides make some solid points, which is why my group chat has been spicier than a kind of vindaloo all week long. Now, before I spin even deeper into this rabbit hole, here's a quick pit stop. Our free educational Discord server, linked in the description, has an entire channel where we can kind of untangle big brain topics like this in plain English and exchange the dumb questions that you were maybe too shy to ask on Twitter. So why don't you pop in anytime, and the water's warm, we're just waiting for you to join. And yes, if you're thinking of trading the very coins that we're discussing today, then I wanted to let you know that I use Kraken Pro for its deep liquidity and full disclosure, right? The affiliate link in the description down below, it actually kicks back a small thank you back to this channel at no extra cost to yourself. Keeps the lights on and my coffee IV drip flowing. All right, let's get back to the main road. Let's chew on the tech angle here, right? Over collateralized stablecoins park their backup dollars or treasuries in traditional banks. Regulators like that because, hey, at least that kind of fiat sits somewhere that they can actually subpoena. But here is the rub. Those reserves are huge. BlackRock is huge, right? If one of the kind of big issuers needs to yank billions in treasuries overnight to honor redemptions, it can rattle the whole bond market. So kind of like everyone trying to leave a stadium all through the same exit after the free t-shirt night. Now, Bailey says, why risk it? Tokenize existing deposits instead, right? That way the liability stays on familiar ledgers, right? Basically, don't take our business away, please. And banks, well, they don't turn into kind of, hollow shells. They don't want their banking friends to lose their jobs, right? Critics will, of course, fire back like I'm being sarcastic today and say that deposit tokens won't be portable across borders without the same on-chain magic. It's kind of like trying to run Netflix on a DVD player. It just won't cut it in 2025. Curious contradiction, right? America wants private sector hustle to spread dollars. Britain wants public sector guardrails to protect pounds. But history shows the freer model often wins adoption. So think VHS versus Betamax, or more recently, iOS jailbreak apps that eventually became the mainstream features, right? The question isn't who's right on paper, it's which approach captures hearts, minds, and wallets before the other can say regulatory sandbox. Now, this one might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video today is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Okay, so that's the legal dragon slain. Let's go onwards. Right, let's zoom zoom out to the geopolitical kind of sector here for a second, right? Dollar-backed stablecoins threaten the euro, not because Europeans hate their own currency, but because dollars grease global trade, right? Businesses in Nigeria or Vietnam often price goods in dollars for stability, right? Give them dollar tokens that they can kind of skip the banking fees that once kind of nudged them towards euros or pounds. Now, Europe kind of sees its influence eroding like sand under a tide. Yet, here is the curveball. China, officially anti-crypto, is flirting with stablecoins pegged to the yen, right? Albeit with the kind of heavy surveillance backed in. So imagine every transaction reporting back to Beijing's control tower. Europeans' policymakers fear a very similar fate if US tokens take hold. Monetary policy set in Washington, not Frankfurt, is kind of sovereignty chess on a 3D board. And if you're thinking, wow, what that's kind of about above my kind of pay grade here, well, consider this, right? Your mortgage rate, your job perspectives, or prospects, I should say, and even the cost of your morning latte tie, back to the central bank levers. So if those levers loosen, well, the ride turns pretty bumpy for everyone, not just the bankers in their pinstripe suits. Now, let me poke holes in Bailey's stance here, because intellectual kind of honesty kind of rocks here, right? Deposit tokens might sound pretty neat, but they still face settlement delays if they rely on legacy rails once you kind of cross borders. Privacy, well, it's the same KYC, AML, hoops that you already tango with. Plus, private stablecoin innovates faster, right? They can, of course, integrate with DeFi lending and automate payroll within days, not years. So when regulators kind of finally bless deposit tokens, well, the market may have sprinted miles ahead by that point. Remember Kodak? Do you? Because, very few people probably do at this point. They invented digital photography. They kind of shelved it to protect film sales, and poof, smartphone cameras ate their lunch. Now, central banks risk a Kodak moment if they kind of bury tokenized cash in policy committees until 2030. Sprinkle in a personal anecdote right here, right? Last year, I paid a freelancer kind of sound design engineer in Argentina. Bankwire, 7 days, $80 in fees, and he had to beg his bank for approval. USDT on Tron, 10 seconds, pennies in gas, and he managed gracias, or messaged gracias, before I even finished a bagel. Now, you multiply that efficiency by millions, and you see why stablecoins are the lightning in the bottle. But efficiency cannot outrun the trust, right? All it takes is one high-profile collapse, a La Terra Luna 2022, and, well, governments feel vindicated, tightening screws. The irony is that heavy rules often shove users towards riskier shadows. It's a regulatory whack-a-mole. Now, Bailey's chairmanship at the Financial Stability Board means that he can push global standards. Think kind of Basel Accord, but for on-chain tokens. So picture a, harmonized playbook then. Capital buffers, real-time audits, redemption guarantees. That could bridge the private innovation versus public safety kind of canon. On the US side, a bipartisan kind of bill is kind of crawling through, Congress, promising exactly that, right? Reserve audits, clear tax treatments, consumer recourse. And if that bill passes first, America writes the de facto global standard, and Europe ends up playing catch up, grumbling but complying, just like it did with GAFA tech giants. All right, let's take a breather, hydrate, stretch, and circle to something practical. Right, if you hold stablecoins, check whether the issuer publishes daily reserve, attentions. Right, look for the kind of segregated bank accounts, short-dated treasuries, and licensed auditors. Right, if the PDF feels a bit like a mystery novel, you should probably run. Better yet, you want to park some funds in multiple reputable kind of coins. Redundancy, of course, beats the regret. You can cue another plug here, but it's an important one, right? The Kraken Pro affiliate link down below. Remember, the affiliate means that if you sign up and trade, the exchange tosses a few coins into the channel's tip jar, which basically just helps me kind of churning out these deep dive stories for you guys. Now, Kraken Pro, or Kraken, I should say, proof of reserve audits are open sourced. And so you can actually verify that they actually hold what they claim that they're holding. So that's transparency. It isn't making, or at least not a marketing kind of slogan. It's actually life insurance for your crypto. Now, let's kind of spice things up with a bit of a hypothetical. Let's suppose HSBC issues an on-chain digital pound, but the only retail client inside the UK, right? But is the only retail client inside the UK. Meanwhile, of course, Circle's Euro stablecoin flows into every remittance corridor, which captures at least mind share and mainstream adoption much faster. So borderless wins every single time. And that is kind of why Bailey's cautious tone really matters here. He's effectively kind of pleading for international coordination before the horses bolt. Otherwise, the Bank of England could end up like Blockbuster, kind of pitching membership cards while Netflix streams globally. Now, speaking of coordination, remember MiCA. This is the European's market in crypto asset regulation. Now, it carves out a licensing regime for stablecoins, right? Caps daily transaction volume and demands sizable capital cushions. Sounds solid, but some experts argue that those caps will suffocate legitimate use cases like supply chain finance or NGO relief payments, right? Strangle is, or at least I should say, to strangle the good to kind of catch the bad. It's a classic regulatory overreach. So, what's the crowd's verdict then, right? Crypto Twitter is kind of split here, right? Purists kind of call Bailey a dinosaur guarding Jurassic banking turf, and it definitely feels that way. Pragmatic people applaud his kind of focus on, systemic kind of risk. Now, I lean somewhere in the middle of the messy mess, just the chaos, I guess, right? And you got to celebrate some efficiency, but audit the gears with intensity. So at this point, you might feel some whiplash here, right? Dollars kind of cheerleaders here, Euro guardians over there, pound protectors yondering, right? The confusion is, of course, a feature here. It's not a bug. Money has always been political, right? Gold standards, Bretton Woods, petrodollars, each kind of picks a system that suits its own superpowers, right? Stablecoins are just the 2020s remix of the 24/7 global fan base. So let me round this out with some kind of soft-spoken but important thoughts, right? Whenever, or at least whatever kind of wins here, private tokens, token deposits, or some kind of mutant hybrid, our daily lives are going to change, right? Paying rent could become an instant, or at least as instant as sending a meme. Cross-border business might grow like bamboo, but central banks need tools to hit the brakes in a crisis, or 2008 could repeat itself, but this time on turbo mode. And that is why I keep reading both sides of the argument, or sit in both camps, arguing with myself and hoping, or I should say hopping into our free Discord to kind of see what you all think, right? The truth, as always, or as usual, kind of lives in the tension between the extremes. So what did we really learn today then? Right, Bailey's warning, it isn't just a random splash of cold water. It's a chess move. The US is pushing stablecoins to cement dollar influence. Europe fears currency collapse or eclipse even, and even counter moves with strict oversight. Somewhere in all of this clash, the innovation kind of keeps sprinting, breaking, fixing, and of course repeating. Now, if you are still with me here, and I know you are because, well, you're awesome. Remember two different actions. Join the Discord. It's completely free to use. And go ahead and check out Kraken Pro if you're hunting for a battle-tested exchange. Affiliate supports the channel. Big hugs. Big thank you. And everything else, keep questioning. Keep researching. Keep your seatbelt fastened because the next curve might be sharper than this one. Tap the subscribe so that we can unpack tomorrow's cliffhanger together, and why don't you check out the video that's queuing up on the screen right now.